IVR as the first offer or first type of implementation where they offer up callback, and then across maybe the mobile device or website. Next slide. Okay. Any questions before I go into the reporting aspects, or if you had questions about other call flow scenarios, use cases?
Yeah, I think just so you guys know, he's got reporting, he's got desktop integration, and then kind of the positioning of it, and then a technical overview, and then roadmap. So that's how this is broken up.
All right, good. So on the reporting templates, so we have the same solution in our cloud environment. For cloud deployment, they're going to use Designer. They call it Designer Callback V2, version 2. And you could also have a composer-based application. Unfortunately, I wasn't involved with this decision process or development. So the Pulse team built a callback activity template. It ships with the latest version of callback. Ships with the latest version of Pulse, and unfortunately, again, we found out later on that it was built based on a callback in Designer, not a callback that was generated from like Composer or something. So it was different, I would say, statistics or different mechanism of how the events were being generated that Pulse callback activity was picking up. So the screenshot that I'm showing you is actually a QKPIs, which is a standard template within Pulse. And again, you can report off of the call enter virtual queue was a callback made to a caller. So it doesn't show, unfortunately, the metrics that are helpful. So you offered callback, you want to see how many callbacks were accepted, were offered, were declined, were canceled, stuff that's relevant there. How long that caller has been waiting in that virtual queue, if you will. And so we can talk about scenarios, but I just want to point out there that this slide is to show you we do support still real-time reporting through Pulse, and even CC Pulse, through the old desktop application. We're trying to obviously focus on the Pulse dashboards and widgets that it provides.
So you're saying that
at a later date, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm confused about the Designer part. You're saying we have to have Designer?
No. Sorry. Oh. The callback activity template that we ship with Pulse right now won't work for a premise deployment. It was only built to support a callback through Designer.
Oh,
right. Designer-based application. So cloud customers.
So the template you can't, but you still have access to all the information.
You still have access to all the information, but you're going to have to use a different template. You're going to have to build the statistics that you need.
I get it.
Until the Pulse team actually creates the template or widget for us. Yeah. So yeah. We're
and Robert, just so you know, the mentality, or I guess with Verizon, it's really all the deployments, whether they're in the Verizon cloud or on-premise or some kind of hybrid, all for all intents and purposes are look like a premise solution to us. They're taking our licenses and they're standing up, solutions, and they may be on-prem or off-prem, but to us it's like almost a premise solution.
Right. Yeah, and so the case is that Designer is for cloud customers only, Genesis cloud customers, and it's the template itself doesn't work for a premise.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So, Robert, but again, the idea is you can build it using the QKPIs that are in the system, and you just have to actually, in essence, create the statistics associated to the new template, and then you have callback related metrics.
Yeah, I get it. Eric, were you going to say something? Oh, okay.
No, he answered my question.
Cool.
Yeah, so I have a question. This is Jeff Payne, and so is this available only with Pulse, or is this CC Pulse? Or
you can also use CC Pulse. The difference is that I don't think we have. I don't think that team is going to build a template in the true sense, right? In that workspace within Pulse, CC Pulse. Whereas the direction is to say, as part of the Pulse dashboards, you have a widget, a layout, a dashboard for callback activity. And I scratched the name. It's just that unfortunately that didn't work for us. But yeah, so it would work with CC Pulse. The idea is that it's getting its statistics from StatServer and events that are taking place, just like you would with a regular call. The difference is that we're reporting off of virtual queues. There's going to be one for the target, right, and then the callback bucket where the callers are actually waiting.
Okay. Jeff, did that answer your question?
It answers the question. I have my concerns, but Jess has answered my questions.
Okay. Well, you want to come back to the concerns later or no?
Well, so, I mean, you have a template for Pulse, but you don't have anything. You have to go build it for CC Pulse.
We have a template for Pulse right now, but let's just put it this way. We don't have a Pulse. We don't have a template for Pulse or CC Pulse. We are working on a template for Pulse through GAX. We are not. That team is not working on a template for CC Pulse. You can build one for CC Pulse. You can manually build one for Pulse through GAX as well.
Okay.
So, Robert, if I'm to summarize, we currently have no templates for premise at this point. We are working on a template for premise for Pulse only through JAX. And CC Pulse, you would have to create your own template or custom template and develop it and pull the KPIs in from StatServer.
Correct. Yeah, give it the alias name that you want for the different metrics.
Okay.
So, is that okay?
Yep.
All right. So the next part is the historical reporting. So we've got a couple PDFs that are shown there as the reports that are available for callback within Interactive Insights, GI2. So we get the cradle to grave reporting that the caller went into the platform. Get back up. Yeah, there we go.
I know.
So we can see. No. Just the one screenshot there. I think I took another slide deck, and I actually do have a callback details report that I can share if you want, but it's really detailed and it doesn't really fit on the screen too well. So, no, the idea is that in the callback summary, you've got multiple tabs there. You can see, break it down by offer type. There's a cost savings, perhaps. It's built into the revenue or the cost savings associated with these interactions on the separate tab there. Break it down by attempt, and then even the wait times associated with these. But on the main page, you can see, again, how many callers accepted, how many are actually waited for agents, accepted, scheduled, to do a scheduled callback, or selected an immediate callback. How many declined it, percentage of that, attempted, and then whether or not they got connected to an agent or they banned from ringing. All the various different call states you get. Was it transferred after the fact? After the agent got the callback, they transferred to somebody else instead of answering the call. So first call resolution type stuff that you'd be able to do that analysis on. So. So those are the two parts with sort of out of the box. I won't say out of the box, but your Pulse would be sort of out of the box. GI2 you have to purchase, but the idea is that these are the out of the box reports with GI2, callback summary and the callback details report.
So Robert, if they didn't have GI2, they could create their own report template and their own front end to emulate this report, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you're just capturing T events, right? Just like Icon is doing that. You could also gather it through, we expose, I don't know to what extent expose is the right word, but there's a JSON construct of what took place for those interactions. And I have to find out if that's exposed to the way that you'd be able to just query for it and use it that way. I think it's more for troubleshooting and for call processing more than it is for reporting purposes. But again, if it's there, somebody would probably take advantage of it.
Okay, excellent.
So on the next one, we have basically within GMS, there's a callback management UI. So you access it through GAX, single sign-on support. You get into the callback UI, you'll see on the callback tab, or the middle button there, callback. You can see what the statuses of the callback are for today, last 7 days, next 7 days, next 30 days, last 30 days. So it's kind of like a reporting tool, but the idea is not reporting on it. You're not summarizing anything. We see 5 callbacks, but I'm not sort of running a report off of that. I'm not exporting this in any fashion. Under the advanced options, I can actually filter out the different statistics or states. So what ones were completed over today, what ones are scheduled, what ones are processing, what ones are queued. I believe that's in the notes section on the slides, but in any case, so the caller's phone number and then the service queue. The service queue, I can show you what that looks like within my screen if I was going to sort of demo something real quick. But the service name is all of the options and parameters that you're feeding callback, right? You're saying when I want to do a callback, here's all the parameters I'm going to go ahead and pass to GMS to say it's going to queue on this virtual queue, what's the time to live for these callbacks, whether it's 1 hour, 2 days, how far into the future, what business hours to use, what capacity constraints, and they're all linked, if you will, behind the scenes. This just allows you to see if I've done a gold callback, what are those customers? And unfortunately, the screenshot that I took doesn't show you that you can cancel because these are all completed. But any ones that are in queue, if they're in a queued state, there's a checkbox, obviously, to the left of the state. They're all empty at this one. But you'd be able to click on that and say, cancel these callbacks. For whatever reason, you might be, maybe it's a business rule that you have that says, let's close out all the callbacks. Maybe you're creating them for test purposes, and you just want to go ahead and close those out. Or you already reached that caller, and you want to see if you have any additional ones that are coming up through this UI. So there's a couple more things that will show up. And again, I didn't take a screenshot for it. I was just showing you that I have, completed calls, redialed, limit reached. Again, I tried to reach the caller 3 times and didn't reach them. So we see that the final state. And again, all that's going to be passed to reporting purposes as well. So which agent received the call? Was it abandoned from ringing? I'd see that there on that state as well. But if the call was queued, I can see the caller's position in queue through this UI, the estimated wait time for that caller, and say, yeah, they've been waiting too long. Let me kill that one. Or they provided us the invalid number, right? I mean, we've tried to reach them 2 times, and it's not going to, connect successfully or something. So again, there's capabilities that are not for reporting purposes, but it does provide that ability to quasi-report, right? Some pseudo-reporting, because you can do the filters for the different states for different days or even custom date ranges. Questions about that? Yeah, I think the next screen shows you if you're going to create a sample callback. You can test that out. You can do immediate callback. Here's the callback service name that you want to use, and provide it additional parameters, properties. Again, all the stuff we were talking about with time to live, the target you want to send it to. You pass that here rather than creating a standalone callback service. You just want to leverage this one and pass it some parameters.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So now we can start talking about the desktop integration. And I know that you might have your own custom desktop, or customers might have their own custom desktop. The idea is that within Workspace Desktop, fair enough. So what we wanted to do is, so let's sort of pause for a second. if I don't have Workspace Desktop and I want to go ahead and actually pass the attached data, that's going to pass to the agent for that callback, right? You can send those events along, and there's attached data to receive that. What we don't have is, here's the ability for, perhaps I should say, you want to be able to offer the agent the ability to reschedule the call. So, well, if you wanted to build that, there are APIs to reference and say, let's actually do a callback from that desktop, that custom desktop. You can do that, right? And I'll give details to Eric or Rex about this. I might have sent you the email, but we'll just get you that to send along to Verizon. So there's a set of APIs that you can use. They're all documented about how you can use your custom desktop to connect to GMS to do these callback capabilities. This specifically was within Workspace Desktop. This allows you to not have to customize it, right? You have out-of-the-box integration. You can go ahead and see that for instance, customer sent you an email and says, I'd like to discuss this further. Can I get a call back at a certain date, right? It could have been a chat session you were going on. And through that chat session, like, hey, I'd like to just, continue this further. Can you give me a call back about this at a later date? So again, through that UI, through Workspace Desktop, they click on the reschedule icon, and they can schedule that callback through that interface at that point. While they're on an existing interaction, or even after the call is finished, they can say, let's schedule this call to that callback to that customer. Right. There's another scenario here, if you will, where I can preview that caller information. So again, there's a callback that's going to take place, and I was mentioning the different scenarios that actually are available to a platform. So when the customer was on that website or mobile app, and I say I want to go ahead and actually reach an agent, what you could do is an agent first scenario where I'm going to actually get connected to the agent. The agent actually knows that here's the caller's information. They're waiting, and then I dial the customer, right? So in essence, I'm going to reserve the agent, get them connected, and then reach out to the caller and get connected and bridge the two, right? You could also say in the traditional sense, I'm going to go ahead and actually dial the customer first and then get an agent available. You get the downside perhaps in that scenario is that you have a busy call center, and the customer that's getting the callback request, they get connected, and then they hear ringing, right, as we're waiting for an agent to become available, right? So again, it's one of those situations where both are supported. You want to say, I want to go ahead and connect the agent preview or agent first scenario, and then pop up the details of that callback request prior to actually connecting to a customer, right? An agent could also, just like if you think of like a telemarketing campaign, you get like that preview request, says, I want to pull that record. Nah, I don't want to call that customer. Let me dial the next one. Similar here, the difference is that the callback requests are in queue, and the agent has a choice, and you can control whether or not you want these agents to be able to, again, accept or reject the callbacks, and how many times could they potentially reject a callback. So again, that's sort of an element of the Workspace Desktop integration. And there's a couple of screenshots that are related to it. You can even have disposition codes for the callback. I don't have a screenshot for that, unfortunately. And then if the callback was taking place and you want to reschedule it, again, through that UI, you could schedule it. This is, again, through Workspace Desktop. The APIs that I was mentioning for the custom desktop were not incorporated into Workspace Web. This is the last bullet point there. So we are looking at adding that same support through Workspace Web Edition. That's planned for Q2 2017. It may get pulled in sooner, depending on the resource availability, but the idea is that the tentative plan right now is Q2 of next year. to incorporate the APIs that were built into Workspace Desktop and are available for custom desktops. So the slides here show you, here's a call that's taking place, and I can actually then schedule a callback at that time. The icon that's right next to the calendar icon that's, that shows up, you click on that, and then you fill out, what type of callback is this? Is this for a gold customer, for a silver customer? There's a drop-down box. You could actually just force it to be a generic callback queue. So again, depending on your business rules, what you're going to make available to the agent through that desktop. It says, here's what we're going to present to them. There's also blackout dates, right? These time slots that are grayed out. I can't offer a callback during that time frame. I'm not going to give the customer the ability to schedule a call at that time. The agent can't select it. That's actually controlled behind the scenes through, in essence, that management UI that I was talking about before. One of the other tabs that were there. I can also see the available time slots. So anything that shows up, for instance, the other 7:15 to 7:30, in that time slot, I can actually read the availability. How many available slots are there? Because if it says 5, well, I go, well, maybe that's not a reasonable time. Maybe I'm really busy at that point and I don't want to offer it. Or maybe that's just the limit that was set by the business for this virtual queue. And so we're gonna limit the number of callbacks for this future date. Okay.
Hey, Robert, can you allude to TCPA rules regarding calling mobile devices? If somebody is asking for a callback and requests it on their mobile device or through the IVR and puts in their mobile number, or on the website puts in their mobile number, does that identify consent to call that mobile device through TCPA rules?
That's a good question. I don't think that's come up before in any conversation I had, but I'm under the impression that it would be consent, but unfortunately I could type in any number at that point, or again, it's up to the UI developer to say, here's what can be controlled that you can type in. So it's not just any random number. But in theory, if they've gone through the site and they're saying, call me back at this number, that is the consent. But I will check if that actually, maybe it's a
yeah, that's worth asking about. We went through a lot of that information when we were working on SiriusXM. We had an outbound type thing that kind of had that. But you're right, it would be implied that there's consent by them putting in a callback, but it could be another number they're putting in or something like that.
Yeah, call me.
That'd be worth. Yeah, exactly. At this time, right?
Yeah. Well, again, unfortunately, the screenshot does show from 12 a.m. till later in the day, a full 24 hours. The idea is that you would restrict that to the business hours that are there. We just wanted to show you that you do have the ability to allow the agent to do that. Again, you might have this customer might have said, "Yeah, give me a call, tomorrow at that time." And if you have agents available, that's another thing to sort of think about. But you can put the parameters in place that you don't want callbacks. You sort of decide what your business hours are, and call during that time frame.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, in the respective time here, we got 15 minutes left, so I know that we're that looking at the slides ahead here that we've got some technical stuff coming. I know we're going to get into positioning here, but I know these guys are probably anxious to see about the technical side too.
Sure. So let's go ahead and actually move past the workspace piece. If you have more questions, we can sort of delve into that.
Okay.
So again, within Genesis Callback Solution, we tried to sort of say mirror up, but in essence say, look, if I have a virtual hold, somebody's offering that, do I have the ability within Genesis Callback? The answer is yes. We've got immediate callback, we've got scheduled callback, we've got this term called ASAP callback as well. It depends on what channel you're coming in on, right? On the immediate side of things, that use case is if you're on the mobile device or website and you haven't called in on a voice channel, and we need to create a callback for you, and it's kind of like an ASAP request, but the idea is that we're creating the call at that point, right? So we're literally telling the T server, SIP server, GMS to go ahead and create this not an orchestration session, but a call, right? And call this customer on this number at that point. Immediate sort of a misleading term, as you know. If I've got agents that are busy, then it's not going to be immediately. It's when they're available. But again, it's what's the expectation perhaps on the caller's side, and that's why you leverage that estimated wait time. And we'll talk about estimated wait time, I think, on the next slide. But so on Genesis Callback web services, RESTful API that's there. There are sample code, different scenarios, different samples for a scheduled versus immediate, versus a delayed preview type of scenario as well. One of the things that I found out was with VHT, I think they only tested GVP up to version 8.1.5. 8.1.4 and 8.1.5 both had support for the next generation interpreter, but 8.5.1 is the latest and greatest, and GVP Callback works with GVP in that version. For treatments, you're actually using media server, and you'd buy those SIP qualification ports for that capability. If you're doing an IVR and you wanted the voice XML application, then you'd have the support through GVP for that. Sort of a difference between how they're sold at this point, sold in agent seats or agent seat blocks for premise, and then for cloud, there's a specific offering for cloud customers.
Okay. The next guy.
Okay. So the key part here is that this was not like acquired technology. This was built off of Genesis orchestration server behind the scenes. Their Genesis Mobile Services is web services for making requests to the platform to place the outbound call, to query for the status, to get the target, what channel you're trying to manage. I mean, it's still behind the scenes using Genesis, right? So you've built off of the CX platform framework, routing, all the business rules that you can incorporate through Conversation Manager can also be leveraged here. Again, it's all part of your routing strategy or orchestration workflow. Right? I could even query, again, the whole part about Conversation Manager. I can see that, look, have I offered callback before to this caller when they're calling in and not offer it again, right? You can sort of filter out that request for them. Or if they're calling on a different number and we know that this is a legitimate customer, it says, no, we've got a callback scheduled for you on this other number, and give them a chance to even cancel it, right? It says, you want me to cancel this callback that we've got scheduled for you later on. Or maybe it's not related to the call reason they're coming in on, right? This fourth bullet point is pretty important, right? So it's tightly integrated with Genesis routing. Again, ORS, URS, and it's not affecting the queuing of the calls. What happens when the caller accepts callback is that it doesn't actually, it's still tracked within URS. There's an internal queuing mechanism within URS that we tell GMS and Callback is saying, track this call still. You know the status of all the agents you're trying to queue for. Here's the position queue. Keep track of that. And when we need to call that customer back, we're going to move them into the, let's say, top of the queue, but we're going to move them into the part where they're next in line, right? So, and against the queue that you're trying to target for the callback itself. For reporting purposes, when they came in, they were potentially, think of like the RVR flow first, they never reached a virtual queue. So we never actually queued against, for example, billing agents, right? But what we did is we took that call and we threw it into a virtual queue for tracking purposes. When it comes time to call that customer back, we are then able to report, now we're next in line. How many seconds have been waiting? How many minutes have been waiting? How many other callers are there? Again, we can sort of see that within Pulse or the other reporting tools, right? And then when we actually, what's what I'm looking for? When we actually have a callback that's being made, I can even have another virtual queue for reporting purposes that breaks that out and says, how long was that customer ringing before it got to an agent. And the idea is that if they've accepted the callback and we're going to dial them, there should be very minimal amount of time between those two because, again, they've accepted a call, we've got an agent available, we're going to connect them. There shouldn't be much, there shouldn't be many statistics that are associated with that outbound virtual queue, or the callback virtual queue for outbound purposes. So maybe I'm sort of stumbling on that point about how it's tightly integrated, but the idea is that within virtual hold, and for those that are on the call, maybe correct me if I'm wrong on how it's being positioned, but it's not actually throwing the call back into the queue and saying you're top of the list. We're internally tracking that. We know where the callers are against the target that you were originally, and against the agents you were originally targeting, right? And then we place that back in the router engine. The routing engine says, look, I've got an agent available. Let's move that customer to the top of the list, right? In essence, they're not jumping ahead of anyone else. They're just saying, now we're going to place this call back, and this is the person that's available to reach, right? An agent that we're going to actually connect them with. So it's not affecting the priority that's there. You know, and there's 5 people ahead of them. This customer's, you know, in a virtual queue separately. It's part of the same pool of customers that are there, targeting those billing agents, perhaps, right? We're just sort of using the internal queuing mechanism within Router to track that. All right. The estimated wait time, we've got 2 different ways we can actually retrieve that through the statistics API within Callback. You can use URS, say, you know, use the internal queuing mechanism within URS to capture the estimated wait time. We tend to find that that's a little more accurate because it takes into account the pool of customers that are waiting for the agent. Whereas if you said the query of the stat server, then you might not be looking at the customers that are in a virtual queue for calling. In essence, the internal queuing, that Router is keeping track of those customers that it knows need a callback versus the ones that are in the target for billing, perhaps, right? So you can say, look, my estimated wait time for billing agent is going to be this, but I might be ignoring, right, my existing callback customers. And again, we give you the option for both, right? Because some people find that one is a little bit more accurate. We tend to feel that the URS one is more appropriate to use and recommend that. Again, because you're using orchestration server, it has the ability to do the click to call or click to chat from your device. As you saw, I have the mobile app. I was, you know, receive a call from an advisor, connecting with them, or through the mobile site, through the website itself. You know, I'm tracking how long they've been on the site, and I pop up something that says, look, have a click to chat session created. Again, you're leveraging GMS is the brains or the engine there, and we're just allowing the request to be sent through that interface, right, or through that engine. I think next slide's fine. Okay. And I hopefully I'm not running out of time, but it sounds like we might be.
Yeah, I want to make sure. I want to make sure we hit the technical part real quick.
All right. So this is something again we can share with you. It's VHD has its own reporting capabilities. The idea is that it's not integrated, if you will, to the Genesis. Genesis Callback is, right, through Pulse and through InfoArt and GIT reports. Right. Let's go to the next screen. I think we'll get to the maybe a little architecture.
Here we go. Okay, this is stuff that's...
Yeah, so again, we support across the mobile app, through the IVR, through the website, and all those requests are being sent through GMS. GMS is then using orchestration server behind the scenes with a SDXML application, and then using Router and stat server to find out which agent to send it to. In the diagram, we're using SIP server. I could also use a T server. Certain T servers don't have the ability to do treatments, but the idea is that if I'm making an outbound call, I could actually say this is Genesis, you know, callback, calling you back. are you, please confirm that you're this person, press 1 or 2. And so SIP server is using media server for that purpose, right? Again, if you're using T-server, then certain T-servers don't have that capability, and you have to use a different mechanism and just connect the caller. But again, the idea with SIP server is that I can actually use treatment. I can do call broadcast detection. I can leave a message if it's a answer machine, and call the customer back if it was busy. So again, it's all the stuff that you're leveraging within the SIP architecture as well. And the idea is you've got it in place, just leverage it. So I'll sort of pause on the screen because it shows a couple of components that there's GMS, the media, the mobile services, and then orchestration server. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that. Anything specific, where's Genesis Callback, right? So Genesis Callback as a product is part of GMS, right? All of the APIs that are used for Callback are in GMS. So any request that you're making, you're submitting to GMS to handle. It has a little bit more architecture that's not shown here with Cassandra. You can have an embedded Cassandra, or in a large-scale deployment, you'll have external Cassandras, cluster, load balance them, and again, I didn't really show that here, but that's sort of how you start looking at how you'd want to deploy that in a typical environment. But the one thing that somebody asks is, where's Genesis Callback here? It's GMS, right? Fundamentally, it's in that. But GMS also services requests, as we saw on the previous slide with chat and sort of that mobile interaction, the website, web engagement piece. Questions?
Yeah, so, I mean, that's the request coming in from a data connection piece, a call connection, or even the outbound call connection. I don't see even like the media server here. So is that a different slide?
So the outbound request, like as I was making the GMS call, GMS is going to instruct SIP server to connect this customer with an agent. And depending on how you've instructed GMS to do that, whether I connect the agent first or do I connect the customer first, that's all part of that request.
Well, to place the call, so just to place the call, SIP server doesn't place the call. I mean, it instructs something else. I mean, to get there, you got to go through some type of media server, correct?
The SIP server will place the call. It's going to go out to the SBC. It's going to go to the gateway. It's going to go to the PSTN across the SIP trunk. And PSTN is probably the wrong word for that, but media gateway out to the PSTN. And if you're saying, do I need to go ahead and involve media server for call broadcast detection?
Yeah, in the architecture at all?
You can. I mean, it's optional, right? It depends on how the customer wants to handle. Do you want to do call broadcast detection, or you want to say let the agent handle that, right? The agent can be my what happens when recognizes whether it was a answer machine or not.
Where do you place the call if the agent's not available right then when you, if you went out and placed the call first and the agent's not to make that connection yet, not there because it's in queue, trying to get there, where's the call connected to?
So through SIP server, it's actually just making the call out to the customer. And then the customer hears ringing, they pick up, and then we make the call request to the agent and then connect those.
But,
you're saying...
So Robert, it's got to be on media server at some point because we've got to terminate the RTP somewhere. So SIP server is going to use media server as an answering port for that at that time until the agent's available, correct?
It's sort of a two-way. The agents, I'm trying to think of the scenario that if I looked at just a user connected first, that's the end customer, we're going to reach out to them. At the same point, we're going to have we know the agent's there, and so SIP server says that's where we're going to send the call to, and we're just going to get the customer connected. So I don't media server doesn't have to be deployed.
No. In the case of what Jeff is getting at is, let's say the agent is there, but the agent's not ready or unavailable, they picked an agent and somehow the agent goes off hook or whatever, and you've got that call you made to the far end party, and you've played a script of some sort, that sits off
Right.
of SIP server and resource manager, does it not? And media server?
If you wanted, again, this is the part of, if you wanted to play some specific music while you're ringing, yes. But you're just having SIP server, you're going to have SIP server say, generate the ring, and that's not a media event, right? But if you want to say, all my agents are busy, that's a media treatment, if you will, or music and cue.
Well, are you saying that you're never placed, so I guess are you saying you're never placing a call until you have an agent already targeted and the agent sitting there available and waiting, and then also how do you, on the other side of that, make sure that you have the right person? You call the number, but how do you know that you got the right person yet?
So again, there's different scenarios.
Yeah.
No, I mean there's different scenarios at that point. So so SIP server is dialing out, and if I'm not doing any detection, I'm going to assume that that's the person that I needed to dial. And at the same time, router said this is the target I need to send the call to, and so SIP server is actually sending the call to that agent. They have a call, right? There's the ringing that's going to take place, and it's really just connecting those two parties. I think in a typical deployment, yes, you're going to have some media element to do, again, the detection, music that's being played, you know, and I'm not sure I would see a scenario where you wouldn't have media server. I'm just saying that is an option. You don't have to deploy that.
Let me ask a further question on Jeff's comment. If in fact we dial, let's say it's Joe Schmo, and we want to confirm that it's Joe Schmo. This is a call for Joe, callback from XYZ company for Joe Schmo. If you're Joe Schmo, press 1. We'd use GVP for that, correct?
You could have GVP for that. You could actually just do it with treatments. But yes, you're using media server. It depends on the complexity, because if you're trying to say, you know, please say yes or no, then you're going to use GVP with a voice XML app. But you could have it where it's press 1, and that's just media server doing a treatment.
Right. You'd still have to have media server, regardless of
in that scenario where you're trying to confirm the caller on the other end, that you say, here's where I want to go ahead and play them. Again, even sort of take this a step further, you can say, look, this is the agent's going to get some notification that they're now being connected to like a whisper greeting type thing, right? So the agent gets the greeting, the customer gets the greeting, and media server is doing that piece. But again, it's an optional component. It's just a matter of you can leverage additional capabilities, as you said. You know, the confirmation of you know, what we're going to say to the caller. There's media going to be played to them. Otherwise, we're going to assume that the person we're dialing answers, and we're going to send that to an agent. That's a little bit, you know, I would say wasteful. I mean, you know, it's like the agent is going to get connected and pulled from another call potentially as a target, when they could have actually taken an inbound call instead of actually not accepting a valid callback request. Right.
Does that make, I guess, you know, you look at it from the standpoint of, depending upon how you want to treat the end customer in dealing with your callback solution, there'll be different moving parts associated with the call flow that the customer experience objective is defined. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, the next screen actually shows you media server in that picture, but I don't know why the diagram didn't necessarily show it. This is sort of a typical scenario. But again, if you have T server, you're not going to have media server. You're going to have some other component that does the announcements or what have you, right? So we're just trying to show in this picture that you could support a deployment where you don't have to have SIP server, but something else is going to be used for the treatments, perhaps. So.
Jeff, does that answer your question? Jeff? He might have had to go, but.
Yeah. So I think in that regard we can maybe follow up and give a better explanation about how media server might be used.
Yeah, I'll check with him on it.
Okay. The last one's actually about the roadmap, so I think that sort of brings us to the end. If you want to skip over to that one. So we're focused here a little bit more about for cloud scenarios, hardening the API in some way, making sure that we can limit the number of requests that are coming through the platform, because if you're denial of service attack, potentially it's a exposed API, right? External. So somebody's going through the website, they're clicking on contact me. That request is going across HTTP request to GMS, and somebody's like, call me back, call me back, call me back. So the idea is to actually put limits in place, harden the API requests that are coming in, enhance the ability within the GMS admin screen to do various different things. Right now, you log in and you have the ability to do callback, create callback scenarios or services, and modify various different things. So we're going to try to put more controls in place for that. Some cloud integration. I mentioned in Q2 the agent preview and API integration to Workspace Web Edition. Right now we have sort of a legacy strategy within IRD. For those customers that need that, the idea is to actually move that out and put it within a composer-based full ORS type of deployment. So none of this, you still have URS for routing, but the idea is that it's not leveraging that for maintaining a IRD-based strategy there. The one that I'm kind of excited about, and I say kind of, it's not the Cassandra support, by the way, it's the WFM integration. So right now I'm able to set the number of callbacks I want to use in that virtual queue. I didn't show you a screenshot of capacity, but the idea is that it's not looking at my staffing, right? My staffing numbers, because I can artificially put in numbers that don't match what I might need and what is expected in future days. So the idea is to actually have Callback integrate with the WFM systems through APIs, of course, and say, let's query what the schedules are out there. Obviously, in Genesis Workforce Management, we already have APIs to query the WFM server for a schedule for a certain date, and that's pretty straightforward. So the idea is to actually leverage that back into the product and say, can we offer Callback and give that within the Workspace desktop, perhaps, right? Display that to the agent and say, now is not a good time, right? We know that we're going to be short-staffed in the next couple of hours or something like that. And the idea with Callback, just sort of summarize this, that it's to flatten out that peak that's taking place and say, look, we can't actually accept this inbound call right now. We're gonna move that to a later part of the day where we have sufficient staffing, right? And to smooth out that peaks and valleys within the, I say flatten, but smooth that out to a certain point where it's a little bit more manageable. And again, offer Callback where those time periods are appropriate for us. We're not going to offer Callback at 9 a.m. in the morning because that's when we're busiest, and maybe at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, 12:30, not a good time either. But 4 and 5 o'clock, that's a good time. We're going to offer Callback and schedule those, right? Offer the ability to schedule callbacks at that time. Again, there's a lot of flexibility within the product, and hopefully we're able to capture enough of that in this session. But if not, we can resume some of that offline through emails, some other perhaps phone calls if need be, and that sort of ends the slides at this point. I think there's another slide about Q&A, so if you have any other questions, now's the time.
I would say
Rex
there's
or
no
Eric,
question.
are you going to? Okay, fair enough. I was going to say if there's any questions, feel free to contact myself.
I'm sorry,
or
I was on.
Rex.
Hey, Robert, I'm sorry, I was on mute. Hey, I was going to say, first off, thanks. We went a little bit over, but it was very thorough. But this information that I've got, this slide deck, is it okay to share with the team there? And we were under a very tight NDA with this very valued partner. So is this okay
No,
to
that's
share
fine.
this stuff?
It's external. It's shareable. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'll have a slide that I'll put up on Genie that get sort of cleared by that team, but it's basically the same slides that are here.
Okay, and there were some references to some PDF files, which were, I think, were reports and whatnot. Like, might be good to have those too. I can share with those.
No, they're actually part of the slides. So if you double click on it,
Oh, they
it'll
are?
actually open up the. Yep, they're all linked in there.
Then I'll share that. Okay, great.
Yep.
Okay.
Excellent.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you, and thank you for those folks hanging on. Appreciate you being here, and then we'll be bringing you more exciting stuff here in the future. So, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Have a great afternoon. All right.
All right. Have a good day. Bye-bye now.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.